I have to find the way to do it because I don't remember. It was electricity for the masses, not just people who could afford expensive vehicles.
And we're free!
Hello, my name is Alanis King, and this right here is a 2023 Nissan Ariya. The Ariya is Nissan's first step into its electric future, and today we're going to figure out just how good of a first step it is. But first, I should say, this Ariya is not available on Cars and Bids. Nissan called me and said, "Hey, do you want to drive an Ariya?" And I said, "Hey, yes I do." So here we are driving an Ariya. If you want to check out cars that are available on Cars and Bids, we put a handy little link in the description of this video. Before we get to this Nissan Ariya, let's talk about why it exists. You might remember that the Ariya debuted in 2020 with a bunch of sharp lines and a beautiful rose gold paint job. Nissan actually calls that color Sunrise Copper Pearl, but it's rose gold to me. When the Ariya debuted, it became Nissan's first all-new electric vehicle since the very popular Leaf in 2010. But even before the Leaf, Nissan had some other EVs. We started in 1947 with a car called the Tama, which debuted in a post-World War II era when Japan was short on oil and gasoline. The Tama could go about 40 miles on a charge, and its top speed was about 21 miles per hour. Fast forward to the 1990s, and we have a car called the Prairie Joy. Prairie Joy! This car had space for the whole family, and it could go 124 miles on a charge. But just 30 Prairie Joys were sold in total to corporate and fleet buyers in Japan. Then around the year 2000, we got the Nissan Hyper Mini. This little guy held 2 passengers and weighed about 1,800 pounds. And the Hyper Mini honestly looks like a little rover from an old school space movie. But do you know what movie it was actually in? The Princess Diaries 2. Yeah. I'm not kidding. Nissan also had some really cute concept EVs, like the Pivo, which had a circular cabin and 4 wheels that branched off of it like octopus legs. We've reached the point in the video where 1, I tie up my hair because it's so windy, and 2, we're talking about the Nissan Leaf. The Leaf debuted in 2010, and today there are all kinds of electric cars. You have the little old Leaf, or you can have a $200,000 Lucid Air. But back in 2010, the Leaf was a big deal. It was new, it was different, it was alive in a world of gas-powered cars, and it was electricity for the masses, not just people who could afford expensive vehicles. The Leaf was actually the first mass-produced electric vehicle in history, and it's been through 2 generations since it debuted. The first generation was a bubbly little hatchback with an upturned face, and it debuted with 100 miles of range. Yes, 100 miles of range. The original Leaf had a starting price of $32,780, and after the US federal EV tax credit of $7,500, you could get it for about $25,000. Nissan said when the original Leaf debuted that its 100 miles of range could cover 90% of the world's drivers, and I am sure that's true. But the problem with Americans, including me, is that we're always thinking about the few times a year when we have to drive further than that. EVs have come a long way since that original Leaf debuted in 2010, and they still have a long way to go. Today, the Leaf's tax credit is expired, but you can get a base model Leaf S for $28,000, which is less than the original Leaf cost, and it has 149 miles of range. If you want to pay a little more, you can get a $36,000 Leaf SV, which has a bigger battery and can go 212 miles on a charge. Nissan sold more than 500,000 Leafs worldwide between 2010 and 2020, including about 148,000 in the US. That's about 15,000 Leafs per year. But now, automakers are transitioning to their new EV lineups for the future, and that means new models. That brings us to this car, the 2023 Nissan Ariya. The Ariya is the more upscale EV compared to the Leaf, and for 2023, it starts at $43,000. The Ariya comes in front and all-wheel drive, and there are a lot of different specs you can choose from. You can have between 205 and 304 miles of range and between 214 and 389 horsepower. This Ariya is the Evolve Plus all-wheel drive e-Force, and the Force has a 4 instead of an F. That means it has 272 miles of range and 389 horsepower. And all-wheel drive, of course. To me, Ariya is a really cool name, and several outlets like Automotive News have reported where it came from. Nissan North America's Vice President of Marketing, Allison Witherspoon, has a niece named Ariya. And Allison Witherspoon said, hey, this means lioness. Why don't we give the car that name? The idea was for it to be an elegant beast. When the Nissan Ariya debuted in that stunning rose gold color, I remember thinking, wow, it's so pointy and sleek and new and so different from what I usually think of when I think of Nissan. It still looks good. I like the way it looks. It's a little more egg-shaped than I thought it would be. The front end is a little more truncated than I thought, but I think the color kind of had a lot to do with it. The rose gold is really, really stunning. I saw a metallic blue one earlier. Really, really stunning. Not as stunning as the rose gold. Get the rose gold. But in the gray, I think it has a couple of things working against it. I think the black cladding right here, it's not plastic cladding. Black cladding, I would prefer body color. I think also the front end is not as daring as it could be, because you look at the front end and it has that big black spot, like a grill on a gas car. That pretend to be grill works against the Ariya. You're an electric car. You need to own it. You need to show people we don't need grills. We're new, we're cool. But overall, I like the way the outside of the Ariya looks. It's nice, it's sleek, it's not too out there, and you can tell from looking at it that, hey, that looks pretty comfy and nice to be in. Time now for my favorite part of our programming, Many Alanises, fit in the trunk. And this little cargo cover is gonna be tricky. We're gonna work on my stretching here. Can I? Oh, it's coming. Oh, this is kind of scary. Okay, so the cargo cover makes it a little tight. I can feel the stretching in my legs. I think that's my hamstrings. But there's like a little sliver of light above the cargo cover, so when I'm in here, I don't feel so trapped and alone. Yeah, you couldn't fit 2 of me. Maybe 1.5 of me. But not a bad amount of space.
And we're free!
Inside the Nissan Ariya is so nice. I'm sure you've read modern Nissan reviews that say some of the interiors aren't the best. Even the new Nissan Z, the interior shares some influences from the 370Z, which was very, very old. This interior is new and nice and minimalist, but not only minimalist, interesting minimalist. We have this like wooden trim, but the buttons are integrated in the wooden trim and they light up different colors. I mean, it's really cool in here. We have the double screen that leads into the driver instrument cluster. It's clean and nice and really, really, really pretty in here. I saw a white Nissan Ariya interior earlier and it was so beautiful, to the point that I was like, I don't know if I want the one with the black interior, but in this lineup, the one with the black interior had more horsepower. But then I got in here and I thought, this is also beautiful. It's really, really nice. The one big mistake up front is the fact that we have not color matched headliner right here. We have the light gray headliner. And to me, when you have a color interior and a light gray headliner, that just signals cheaper car to me, even if it's not true. And I think if Nissan would have carried the black up into the headliner, it would have been so much prettier. Obviously, that isn't a factor on the other model because it kind of matches, right? This car is nice on the inside though. I mean, the lack of this big transmission tunnel here means that we have tons of area for our feet. This center console moves up and back. I have to find the way to do it because I don't remember. Oh, right there, the buttons. Back, up. You can customize where it's at, right? It's super cool. It's airy in here. You have tons of visibility. The rear view mirror is square for some reason. That's interesting. It's nice up here. It is a great place to spend time. The back of this car is spacious. I'm 5'8.5" and I have room for my legs. I feel Like my own person back here, the panoramic sunroof makes everything feel nice and airy and wonderful. And I really do feel like I could spend time back here. Like, this is not a bad back seat. I also have not necessarily a front row seat, but a seat that looks at all of the nice styling up front. And I just see the rose gold accents and all of the pretty stuff up front. This interior is really, really well done. It's time to drive the Nissan Ariya Evolve Plus all-wheel drive e-Force with a 4. And just so you know, I have sunglasses on, not because I don't want to make eye contact with you. I love making eye contact with you, but it's super bright outside and I feel like it would not be super safe to drive without sunglasses. So on they go. Now, like we said earlier, this is the 389 horsepower Ariya with all-wheel drive. This car sticker price is about $56,000. My rear passengers have seat heaters and USB-A and C ports. You know, we're fancy in here, right? I am excited to see how this car drives. Obviously it's electric, so doesn't make much noise. It makes the artificial noise at low speeds because of federal safety regulations. You have to make low speed noise in order to alert pedestrians and anyone else that you are coming. But aside from that, super, 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 super quiet. And we're gonna figure out how this car accelerates, which I'm pretty excited about. Let's drive it a little bit around this area because I'm in this huge parking lot with nothing going on. I love electric cars because it's so weird. When you put the pedal down, the accelerator, it feels like a rubber band. It feels like a rubber band is under your foot and you're just kind of pressing against the rubber band. And you know, when I turn at a high speed, the car does have body roll. It's an SUV, which basically means it kind of feels like this when you're turning. It leans side to side. That's body roll. And it's an SUV. That's to be expected. But what I am really interested in is how fast this 389 horsepower EV with instant torque is. And we're gonna figure that out in just a second. So electric vehicles are very, very, very fast from the get-go because they have something called instant torque. Their torque is available from the get-go. It doesn't build up as the revs build up, right? It's ready to go right there. And we're gonna see what that feels like. Honestly, it feels pretty good. It's not out of this world. It doesn't break your neck. It feels pretty good and the power goes down well. I mean, you can tell it's all-wheel drive. All that power is going down. It's nice. It gives you enough power to feel like, hey, I can merge onto things. I can do a few party tricks with my passengers and show them how fast my car is, but it's not overwhelming. Now, I'm gonna change the drive mode and see if something changes. I also just hit a train, so we're gonna be sitting for a minute. Let's see. Drive mode. Ooh, sport. Okay, we're gonna go to sport mode. So while we're sitting in this train, I figure we should talk about what it's like to press the buttons in this Ariya, because it is odd compared to other cars I've been in. So we talked about how the buttons on the dashboard and on the center console, they're just little lights under the wooden trim, right? And you press them and it's not like a touch screen. There is actual tactical feedback, and also it moves under your finger, so it is a button, but it's like a soft touch button, right? You have to press it hard, but then it's not a click, right? I don't even know how to make the sound. It's a very soft touch button, but a firm press. At first, it's a little weird because it's tactile feedback you're not really used to in a vehicle. You're used to a click or a touch screen, right? You're not used to this weird, like, kind of mushing, right? I feel like you would get used to this very, very quickly. I've gotten used to it and I haven't been in the car very long at all, but it is an odd feeling and it makes the car different. And I love these lighted buttons. I think they're so cool and so different and like a nice way to have a minimalist interior with your own little twist on it, you know? I think they're super, super cool. Ooh, the suspension on this car. Oh, it's so nice and smooth. I just went over railroad tracks and it was just like, it was like it wasn't there. Just like this little, tiny little tapping under me. Wow. It's really insulated from the road. I like the way this feels. This feels very upscale, honestly. This is a new age Nissan product and it is nice. I'm impressed. I want to get it over somewhere where I can floor it again, but I mean, it's nice. It's nice. And this one has 272 miles of range, so you can get pretty far on it. It's often the case with EVs that you have to really pick. Do I want more power or do I want more range? Because often when you have more power, you get a little less range. So instead of having the top end range on this car, I have 272 miles of range with the top end horsepower. But 272 miles of range is pretty far. You don't have to worry that much in this car. There's not a lot of range anxiety. And I mean, I've had it just sitting here turned on and it's barely used any battery at all. I mean, this car is fast. It is fast enough. It's good. It's enough of a party trick to show people. It won't just break your neck like a Kia EV6 GT, right? That'll break your neck. This is a powerful, fast, but not just like kind of electric car. And that's perfectly fine. That's a nice electric car to have. And it's, wow. You could be really, really comfortable in this car with this suspension. Now, the steering has that little bit of delay that you usually get with just normal passenger cars. It doesn't just like twitch with your hands, right? Like, it's loosey-goosey. And the pedals are super light, you know? I mean, there's not a lot of tension to them, but that's pretty normal for this kind of car. I'm super comfortable. I think something that I noticed right away when I got in this car is that the seats are cushy, but ideally not in a way that will cause a lot of wear and tear, because the cushy parts of the seats are in the middle. And the seats in the middle are suede. They're not like leather in the middle. And it's really soft and cushy right there. And I feel like that's gonna wear pretty well because you won't just have a ton of leather creases on it. Everything in this car feels really well thought out. And I am super impressed. Nissan has a long history with electric cars, and obviously the most known to most people is the Nissan Leaf. That was the entry-level mass market EV. This is a $56,000 electric crossover that you can get in rose gold. And this car is really nice, and it is done so well. I'm surprised that we don't talk about the Nissan Ariya more. I'm surprised I haven't driven one yet. I'm surprised I don't see it talked about more. This is a really good car, and I'm super impressed. So that was the 2023 Nissan Ariya. The Ariya represents Nissan's next step in its EV evolution, and it builds on a long history of electric vehicles that came before it. I feel like a lot of people aren't super familiar with the Ariya yet, so I'm glad we got to learn more about it today. But like I said, this Ariya is not available on Cars and Bids. If you want to check out cars that are, we put a handy little link in the description of this video. Otherwise, we'll see you next time.